everyone, and welcome back to another episode of What the Forensics. My name is Nicole, and as you've guessed it, we are joined by the lovely Journey and Rebecca. This week, Journey's going to go all in on Dennis Rader. I don't know why I said it like that, but you know what? We're going all in today. She'll be telling us a bit about Dennis Rader, who is also known as BTK, or the BTK Killer, which just seems not great. That we'll get into. We just had a discussion about the BTK Killer. But that being said, we would like to note that there is a listener's discretion advised, as there are going to be some discussions and descriptions of child death, some child abuse, some child neglect, just not great child stuff, and bondage. And we're not going to kink shame this episode, but there's just some bondage that happens in this. I'm sure Journey will go into it a little bit.
It's not kink shaming because the dude murdered everyone and it was part of his MO. So
it was not consensual. It was not consensual, and it was the non-consent part that we are shaming.
Yeah, and I have seen pictures and I do cast judgment. So
those damn nods. Get better with that. Without further ado though, Journey, tell us all about BTK.
Okay. So Dennis Lynn Rader was born on March 9th, 1945 in Pittsburgh, Kansas. Parents' names were William and Dorothea Rader. He was raised in Wichita, Kansas with his three brothers. As a kid, he did torture. Animal abuse. Yeah, that's a trigger warning.
That's a good one. I like to hear about those sweet babies getting hurt.
Yeah. He did torture and kill animals often as a child, which is one of like the three homicidal triad, whatever. And he did develop violent sexual fantasies that often involved bondage as he grew up. He went to Kansas Wesleyan University for 1 year from 1965 to 1966. He then joined the U.S. Air Force in 1966 and was stationed all over the world. He stayed with them for about 4 years, and then in 1970, he returned to Park City, which is just a suburb within Wichita. And a year later, on May 22nd, 1971, he married Paula Dietz, and they had a son and daughter throughout the years they were married. I couldn't find date of birth or anything for their kids, which I thought was kind of interesting, but fair enough. They deserve their privacy. He earned an associate's degree in electronics from Butler County Community College in 1973, and then enrolled in Wichita State University that fall. And then from 1972 to 1973, he was a factory worker for the Coleman Company, which makes camping equipment, like, like the Coleman coolers.
I was just about to ask. I was going to say, is that like the Coleman's Company?
The Coleman Company.
Oh man, I have a camping stove made by them, and it is great. It's been in my family for like 20 years now.
Right? Coleman is a great brand.
Yeah, it is. It's very reliable.
Yes, very reliable.
How I see Coleman now. Every time I see Coleman, I'd be like, BTK.
Yeah, but he only worked there for a year.
Okay, that's fair.
Okay, kind of in and out. He also worked for Cessna for a short time in 1973. So think of that the next time you get on a plane.
Cool.
Cool. Yeah, super unfortunate. But again, a short amount of time, which seemed to be a common theme for his jobs. So I didn't really know when to put this in, so I kind of just am going to put it in right off the bat. But he had created a, quote, hit kit, which was a briefcase or bowling bag filled with guns, tape, rope, handcuffs, and hit clothes that he would wear for the murder and then throw out, kind of like Dexter's bag of goodies. He developed a pattern for his murders where he would wander the city until he found a potential victim. Then he would stalk that person until he knew the pattern of their lives and when the best time to strike would be. He would stalk multiple victims at a time. Just in case one didn't work out, he would have a backup or two or three. And then once he was ready to murder, he would break into their house, cut the phone lines, and hide until his victim came home. Apparently, he would calm his victims by pretending to be a rapist who just needed to work out sexual fantasies on them, which caused them to be more cooperative because they were just like, oh, if I just go along with this, he'll let me live.
That's so fucked up.
Yeah. So then his sexual fantasies would involve bondage. So he would tie up his victims and strangle them with a plastic bag over their head or his belt, pantyhose, or rope, basically just what was ever available until they lost consciousness. He would then revive them, strangle them again, and then repeat that for a while before finally killing them.
Jesus.
So, yeah, torture quite a bit. And all of this caused him to become sexually aroused. So he would masturbate onto the corpse. And I guess for some of his murders, he would also stab his victims in addition to strangling or instead of strangling. And there has been no evidence of sexual assault. So none of his victims were sexually assaulted.
That's good, I guess. That's like a silver lining.
Yeah. So kind of starting off hot as we are 6 minutes into this episode.
We're just really jumping right in.
I didn't know where to put that because now I'm going to go into the murders, and I was just like, feels weird to say all that after the murders. But on January 15th, 1974, he committed his first murders. He strangled a family of 4 in their Wichita home. Joseph Otero, who was 38, his wife Julie, who was 34, and their 11 and 9-year-old kids. Julie worked for Coleman at the time, but we don't know if that's how they came into contact with each other because I don't think their time working for the Coleman company overlapped. And apparently Joseph had done training or something with the Air Force at the same time as him. So there was just a kind of a couple of different ways that they could have overlapped, but no one really knows why they were chosen. None of the victims were sexually assaulted, but there was semen found at the scene. As a souvenir, he stole a watch from their home. He interestingly committed this murder during the day and left the body so that the couple's other 3 kids would discover them when they got home from school, which is...
That's heartbreaking. Holy shit.
Yeah, no doubt.
That's just
the 11...
cruel.
Yeah, very cruel. The 11-year-old daughter, Josephine, was found hanging from the ceiling in the basement while the rest of the family was found strangled upstairs. I don't really know why she was different, but I know that there was something there.
Mm-hmm.
I could never just kind of get a straight story on it.
Hmm.
And then it just brings me a lot of comfort that none of them were sexually assaulted.
Yeah.
And then in April 1974, he targeted 21-year-old Catherine Bright, who was also a Coleman employee. But again, I don't think their paths ever crossed. He broke into her house, and her brother was staying with her. And he managed to escape after being shot twice in the head and faking death.
Oh damn.
Yeah. And then Rader stabbed Catherine to death and then fled the scene. Kevin, who had been shot, fled the scene and went and got help whenever he was able to.
Do we think... sorry to interrupt. Do we think he maybe had an inside man in at Coleman or like a buddy being like, hey, let me tell you about all of these employees that are here? And then Dennis is using that as a way to find people if
I don't know.
Their paths didn't overlap?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I was wondering something similar, but where, is this Coleman factory in a small town, you said?
It's in Wichita, Kansas. I don't know the size of it, and I don't know if it was a huge factory. I did not think of looking into that at all. But
That's
from
so
the
fair.
sounds of it, he just would stalk them, and I feel like it was just coincidental that they were at Coleman, or he maybe if they had overlapped, he'd be like, oh, that person kind of looks familiar, and then be more drawn to them that way, but not really know why.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wonder if it maybe it was a primary employer at the time, because I'm just looking, and I mean, as of 2022, Wichita has 396,000 people, which is less than the HRM of of Nova Scotia.
Huh.
So and I know there's towns in Ontario that most of the people work at one major factory. So I feel like that's a possibility as to why they all work at Coleman.
Yeah, I think it was just kind of like people just kind of work there.
Happenstance. Yeah.
Because his other victims did not work at the Coleman Company. So then in October 1974, a different person actually confessed to killing the Oteros with his 2 friends. I'm not sure why they did that. And no one really knew. They were just kind of like, this person confessed, but like we obviously let him go because not long after that, an editor at the Wichita Eagle, which is a newspaper, I believe, they received a phone call that directed them to a mechanical engineering book at the Wichita Public Library. And they found a letter inside that included unknown details of the Otero killings. So it was pretty obvious that the 3 kids who confessed to killing the Oteros didn't actually. The letter included him saying, quote, "Those 3 dudes you have in custody are just talking to get publicity. The code words for me will be bind them, torture them, kill them. BTK. You see, he at it again. They will be on the next victim," end quote. So a lot of his letters are very grammatically incorrect and have a lot of spelling mistakes.
You see, he added again. He added again.
Okay. That's where BTK came from. That was also not the whole letter. There was quite a bit more to it, but I couldn't really find it. And that's the first time we see his signature, which the B, T, and K are kind of all like stacked on top of each other, and the B's look like boobs and kind of making it look like a body, and it's just kind of disturbing to look at.
I had made a note when we first opened up the slide that the B looked like a boob, and Journey's like, we'll get to it. There's a point to it. It's meant to look like that. I was like, okay. I never really realized that, but yeah, very much just a massive set of boobs on his signature.
Yeah, so we will put that either on the Instagram or in our source images, so you guys can also get a look at that. It's also very easily Googleable if you can't wait that long.
Yeah.
And then a month later, in November 1974, he started working for ADT Security Services. So now he's able to install security systems. And then he took a couple years off of killing. He strangled his 6th victim on March 17th, 1977. A 5-year-old kid answered the door, so he kind of pushed his way into the house and locked the 5-year-old and his 2 siblings in the bathroom before strangling their mom, Shirley Vian. The children were able to escape, and they did give the police a vague description of the intruder. I saw a couple sources say that he was going to kill the kids, but they were able to escape. And then he said something about them getting lucky because of a phone call. So I don't know if like they called someone or the phone rang and kind of interrupted him. But like he cut the phone line, so I don't really know. I also saw something that said I think it was this one where the Shirley had sent her kid out to go get her soup because she was quite sick and she couldn't do it herself. And so then he followed the kid back into the house, and that's how he got in. Either way, not great. His next victim, Nancy Fox, was killed on December 8th, 1977, and almost immediately after killing her, he went to a payphone and called 911. He told the dispatcher, quote, "You'll find a homicide at 843 South Pershing," end quote. So they were kind of like, "Hey, we'll be right there."
Yeah, if you call in your own homicide, you're actually dumb, I will say. You're actually stupid.
I think he just enjoyed the cat and mouse with the police.
Yeah.
Like he just enjoyed being like, I can do this and you don't know who I am.
I guess at the time, too, it's much easier to do that. Because if you're going to do that now, okay, look at a security camera in the area. You're going to find who's calling in from that phone at that time.
Yeah, just pull up the IP address of where it came in from. You're good to go.
Exactly.
It's a little different in 77, though, I guess.
Yeah. So then a month later, on January 31st, 1978, he sent a poem to the Wichita Eagle that began with, Shirley Locks, wilt thou be mine? That was another thing he did, was like writing poems with the names or like information about crimes he's committed in them.
That is helpful for like the trial, though. They're like,
exactly.
Hey, here's how we can corroborate that he did this.
Exactly. Unfortunately, or maybe, the mail clerk didn't know of the connection to the death of Shirley Vian at the time, I guess, because I guess if that's all you get, and you might just not know. So they forwarded it to the classified ads thinking it was a Valentine's Day note. So it got published in the classifieds. I should have tried to find it. Yeah. Because I don't know how like graphic it is, or if it was literally just Shirley Locks, wilt thou be mine? And then on February 10th, 1978, he started to become really angry at the lack of media attention. So he wrote a letter to a local TV station that said, and this is actually quite the note because I was able to find, I think, the whole thing. So I'm just going to read it all if you guys are okay with that.
Yep, it's exactly what I did last episode with Eileen. I love long quotes.
Okay, feel free to interrupt me if there's anything you guys want to discuss. So it said, quote, I find the newspaper not writing about the poem on Vian unamusing. A little paragraph would have enough. I know it not the media fault. The police chief, he keeps things quiet and doesn't let the public know there is psycho running around, loose, strangling mostly women. There are 7 in the ground. Who will be next? How many do I have to kill before I get a name in the paper or some national attention? That's a huge line in there. Everyone pulls that one out.
I can't blame him.
Yeah, right. Do the cop think that all those deaths are not related? Golly gee, yes. The MO is different.
Golly gee. Oh my.
Yeah. The MO is different in each, but look, a pattern is developing. The victims are tie-up. Most have been women, bone cut, bring some bondage, mater sadist tendencies, no struggle. Outside the death spot. This is so hard to read.
I'm sorry. Like, I don't mean to be laughing. This is terrifying. But the grammar.
So bad.
Okay, yeah. So no struggle outside the death spot. No witness except the Vian's kids. They were very lucky. A phone call saved them. I was going to tape the boys and put plastic bags over their head like I did Joseph and Shirley and then hang the girl. God, oh God, what a beautiful sexual relief that would have been. Josephine, when I hung her, really turned me on.
Ew.
Her pleading for mercy when, oh God. Her pleading for mercy, then the rope took hold, she helpless, staring at me with wide terror, fill eyes, the rope getting tighter, tighter. You don't understand these things because you're not under the influence of Factor X. The same thing that made the son of Sam, Jack the Ripper, I think that's supposed to be Harvey Glatman, Boston Strangler, Dr. H.H. Holmes, Pantyhose Strangler of Florida, Hillside Strangler, Ted of the West Coast, and many more infamous character kill. Which seems senseless, but we cannot help it. There is no help, no cure, except death or being caught and put away. It is a terrible nightmare, but you see, I don't lose any sleep over it. After a thing like Fox, I come home and go about life like anyone else. And I will be like that until the urge hit me again. It not continuous, and I don't have a lot of time. It take time to set a kill, one mistake, and it all over. Since I about blew it on the phone, handwriting is out. Letter guide is too long and typewriter can be traced too. My short poem of death and maybe a drawing. Later on, real picture and maybe a tape of the sound will come your way. How will you know me? Before a murder or murders, you will receive a copy of the initials BTK. You keep that copy, the original will show up someday on Guess Who. May you not be the unluck one. P.S. How about some name for me? It's time. 7 down and many more to go. I like the following. How about you? And then he lists aliases they could use, which include the BTK Strangler, Wichita Strangler, Poetic Strangler, the Bondage Strangler, or Psycho, the Wichita Hangman, the Wichita Executioner, the Garrote Phantom, and the Asphyxiator, signed BTK.
That's
what a guy.
Whack.
Oh my lord.
Once again, like, can't reiterate enough, not laughing because of what he's saying. but laughing because holy shit, this man cannot write.
Yeah.
Yep. That was so uncomfortable.
I also don't know if this is like
that.
a BTK spelling mistake or just a slide spelling, but the fact that it's the Bond Age Strangler, I really wish they had gone with that. Not even the bondage, it's just the Bond Age.
The Bond Age.
The Bond
Strangler.
Age Strangler. You know what?
I'm James Bond.
Yeah. No, I copy pasted this. So unless it was somehow changed from the original to this,
I don't anticipate it.
I love that.
Yikes.
I love that. I don't like it's terrifying that he wants attention so bad.
Yeah.
But it is also kind of hilarious that he wanted it so bad.
Yeah.
He's desperate.
And if they hadn't
very desperate.
I guess you can't not interact with someone who's doing that. But if you hadn't, would he have just continued, I guess?
Yeah, what happens if they ignore them? Would he just try to get their attention harder? I feel like either way, he still would have. Because, he said, he's infected with something X.
Factor X, yeah. So he
X, yeah.
He claims later on, I think during his trial, and I guess also in this video, that he was possessed by a demon thing that made him kill.
Obviously.
Sounds very Son of Sammy.
Yeah, so that's why he's this is the same Factor X that was in Son of Sam. And
do we know, okay, sorry, backtracking. You know how there's the killer gene and there's theories about there being the homicidal gene? Was that a thing at the time that BTK was a thing? And is this Factor X? Do you think possibly that could be what he's referencing?
That would make sense, but I don't know. I think it was too early in the serial killer sphere because I think this was it
was before
1978.
Yeah.
So I don't know if the serial killer gene would have been as prevalent. But I have no idea. But it does make sense that Factor X is a gene of some kind because it kind of sounds gene-ish.
Yeah, it sounds gene-ish, or the fact that aliens are coming and giving him this thing, or possession. I don't know.
Yeah,
it kind of sounds like he just took something directly out of the X-Men, but instead of it giving them mutations, it just makes you murder people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
so it's not as cool as the X-Men.
Yeah. Yes, remarkably less cool. So yeah, sent that letter. Everyone's yikes. Wichita Police Chief Richard Lemunyon called a news conference to announce the presence of the BTK Strangler in the area. So that was the name they decided to go with. He said, quote, "We have no reason but to believe that the individual has the capability to kill again," end quote. So they were kind of he will kill again, be afraid. And so this announcement started a huge panic. And then Dennis just waited 8 years before killing his next victim.
Wow. Holy shit, for real?
Yeah.
That's whack. Also, I didn't mean to raise my hand.
That's okay. I don't understand how he was able to do that because not a lot of serial killers can just wait.
That's a lot of willpower.
Yeah.
Well, it's he just said, sorry, I was gonna say, he said in his letters, he's the urge comes and goes. Sometimes I don't have it. So it's I highly doubt he didn't have the urge for 8 years immediately after sending that letter.
Yeah.
But that's still kind of crazy for someone that just admitted to being a sexual fiend for murder.
Right? Especially because there's also the sexual aspect of it is what was he doing in the meantime to get his rocks off? Because that's not exactly something that you can kind of just pause.
Yeah. Unless he was doing it off the radar a bit and found a way to
Rader,
yeah. As it came out of my mouth, I had to pause a little bit and okay. He had to have been doing something to satiate his need, right? I don't think there's any way he could have just gone the 8 years without committing anything. Right? He just maybe wasn't caught, or he was saying that he wasn't doing something.
Yeah, I don't know. Crazy. But I guess a little less than a year after sending the victim, so still within this 8 years. He didn't end up killing this person. But on April 28th, 1979, he was waiting patiently for Anna Williams to come home, but left before she did. He got super frustrated because he was like super excited to kill her, I guess. So I don't know if that like frustration like helped him wait the 8 years or what.
Mhm.
But 2 months after he was like in her house waiting for her to come home, he mailed her a bunch of her personal items that he had taken and a poem that was titled, "Oh Anna, Why Didn't You Appear?"
I hate that so much. Why does he
Right?
okay. I was gonna say why does he know her name, but he was in her room. Like he probably found like
Yeah.
everything.
And he had been like following her. And I think she might have been kind of a neighbor. I don't really know. But
That is
he like
so
really
creepy.
familiarizes himself with his victims.
Ugh.
But yeah, yuck. And then a couple months later, he graduated from Wichita State University, where he majored in administration of justice. And
What?
yep.
Holy shit. Okay, sorry. That's whack.
Yeah. So I'm like kind of interesting that like even with Eileen Warnos like wanting to become a police officer, he's over here like, let me also kind of be a police officer or whatever.
Yeah, right. They're either like, let me either aid in stopping the obstruction of justice,
Yeah.
or let me obstruct justice, please.
Exactly. And so then we jump forward to August of 1979, where authorities released the recording of the 911 phone call to report the death of Nancy Fox. And a plethora of tips came in from the listeners who thought they recognized the voice, but no relevant information emerged, which isn't that surprising because all you're hearing is a voice. And unless he has like a super, super identifiable voice, it's kind of a long shot. And then in 1984, Chief LeMunyon started a task force that was devoted to BTK's crimes and nicknamed it the Ghostbusters. And so this task force carefully organized and preserved valuable evidence from his crimes and just kind of like kept it all in one spot so if they ever did catch him, they would have it all.
So, do they know that they're all connected at this point, or they're just like assuming? Did I miss that part? Because
I think, yeah, because
well, I mean, I
he
guess
writes a
if he's-
letter about each
yeah,
of them.
I was gonna
Yeah.
say he's telling everyone actually which crimes are his. Okay,
Yeah,
I take
so
that
they
back.
have.
Let's pretend I didn't ask that.
That's okay. I'm just curious why they started it like 6 years after his last
Yeah,
like communication with them.
yeah.
And then coming back from his 8-year hiatus, he killed Maureen Hedge, his 53-year-old neighbor, on April 27th, 1985. Supposedly, he had taken her body to his church where he photographed her in bondage and then strangled her. She was
the church?
found, yeah, kind of icky.
Oh no.
She was found dead 8 days later, and he was actually not a suspect at the time, which I find kind of interesting.
Interesting.
And then on September 16th, 1986, he killed 28-year-old Vicky Waggerly, leaving her kid alive. Okay, so I think this was she had sent her kid out for soup and then he came back.
Gotcha.
When her husband got home, he found his 2-year-old son sitting by himself and his wife dead in their room. There was no other evidence really at the scene, so the husband was the primary suspect.
Mm-hmm.
And then in July of 1988, he was fired from his job at ADT Security Services. He was then a Census Field Operations Supervisor in 1989. And then in 1991, he started work as a compliance officer in Park City, Kansas, where he took his job way too seriously and supposedly killed a neighbor's dog for no reason. He like took great pleasure in like handing out citations and being really hard on dog owners and just like being a terrible person. He was also very active in his church and was a Boy Scout leader because I think his kid was in Boy Scouts or whatever.
That's not surprising.
Yeah. And then in January 1991, he threw a cinder block through a sliding door at Dolores Davis's house. He strangled her to death and then left her body by a bridge. This is supposedly his last murder. No one really knows why he fell off the map and stopped killing now, but at this time in his life, he was like a Park City compliance officer and a father of 2. But if like he had his kids right when he got married, they would have been like 20 years old. So I don't really know like how involved he needed to be.
They're adults, yeah.
Yeah. And then we jump forward quite a few years, and on the 30th anniversary of his first murders in 2004, a local paper ran a feature that speculated that the killer had either died or was in prison. Then, on March 19th, 2004, Rader responded to the article by sending evidence from his 9th murder of Vicky Wegerly, which included her license, pictures of her body, and the BTK signature. Her death was not linked to the BTK killer until now because her husband was the prime suspect. And then over the next year, he sent packages to the media or left them around Wichita, which is really scary. He often used cereal boxes to hold the drawings, crime souvenirs, photographs, written descriptions of the murders, and dolls posed to kind of mimic the deaths.
That's icky.
Yeah, it was just like dolls. There was one doll that, like a Barbie, that was kind of dressed like Josephine and then had like a noose around its neck to kind of, and then tied to like something that mimicked the pipe that she was hung from. It's also thought that the cereal boxes were a reference to serial killers, but who knows? And then on May 5th, 2004, he mailed a fake ID, chapter titles for a BTK biography, and a cryptic word puzzle that included a bunch of hidden words, including a grouping of letters spelling D. Rader, the street numbers of his address, which were 6220, and the types of jobs that could have been used to gain entry to homes. And he sent that to the same TV station that he had sent other communications to. And then in January 2005, another cereal box was found that included a graphic description of his first murders, and a doll fashioned in a death position after a local TV station received a postcard with instructions on it. So they got the postcard. He was like, "Did you find this cereal box?" And they were like, "No, not yet." So then they went and found it.
That's so weird. That's like the world's weirdest scavenger hunt.
Right. And then continuing the scavenger hunt, they found another postcard in that box that asked if they had found a box at the Home Depot. Oh. So the police went to the Home Depot. They talked to all of the employees. No one really like knew anything. And then one guy came forward later that night and said that he had found a cereal box in his truck bed, like after he got home from his shift at the Home Depot or whatever.
Weird.
Yeah. And that cereal box included a note where Rader asked police if they would be able to trace a floppy disk. And then he like asked them to respond through a classified ad and call him Rex. So the police responded, and the code they used was, "Rex, it will be okay. Contact me, P.O. Box, first 4 reference numbers at 67202. And I guess that worked.
That's 5 reference numbers.
Yeah. I don't know. But 6 days later, he responded by sending another message to the same TV station. I don't really know what it said, but I think it just kind of confirmed that he got their message in the classified ads. And something that I forgot to say was there was a security camera at Home Depot, but because it was, I guess this was 2004, but the quality wasn't great, but they were able to get the make and model of his vehicle, so they knew he was driving a black Jeep Cherokee.
Okay.
Interesting.
And then on February 16, 2005, he sent them the disc, which the police learned was used by a dentist at Christ Lutheran Church and Park City Library. And within seconds, an internet search for Christ Lutheran Church reveals the name of its president, none other than Dennis Rader.
That is so hilarious to me that he sent a cryptic note to the police in a cereal box and was like, "Hey guys, if I were to send you a floppy disk, because you know how I like to like fool around with you guys, would you trace that?" And they're like, "No, we totally won't trace that." And he just trusted them.
Right?
What a dumbass. He just trusted the police.
He must have assumed that they had some sort of like relationship.
Yeah, like, he's like, "Oh, they know me by now."
Yeah, right? Like, we're friends.
Yeah, they like the cat and mouse that I'm doing.
Exactly. But other than that, he was actually forensically savvy. Forensically, because they didn't get any like fingerprints or DNA or hair or any fiber evidence off of any of the communications that he had sent them, which doesn't happen a lot with serial killers. But they were able to match his DNA to the semen found at the first crime scene. And the way they did this was the Ghostbusters task force had BTK's DNA on file, and they learned that Rader's daughter was a student or had been to like a student hospital at a university earlier for a pap smear. And so they obtained a warrant to test her DNA, and it was a near match to the DNA that they had obtained from the scene. So through that, they found out that he was closely related to her.
What I want to know is how the police knew that she was getting a pap smear.
Yeah, because why is that your first, like you go to the university hospital and you're just like, students related to Rader? Or else they maybe like, because they already had his name, I guess maybe they looked up his kids and saw that she was going there. And then, yeah, I don't know. It's very odd and kind of a little bit icky. And then I don't know if like with the warrant, she like gave her permission, or if because the pap smear was now with the hospital could give permission.
Open records,
like,
yeah.
I just don't know.
Could she have been in the hospital for something else and just happened to also have a pap smear conducted? Like, was she going for, say, something else, and then within those examinations included a pap smear, and that's just what they chose?
I don't know. I don't know if it was just
odd.
Like because she was a student at this university and there was like free pap smears, she could just like, she needed to get one for like the yearly or whatever. I don't really know.
Yeah, it's just odd that it's at a hospital, but I don't know.
Yeah, it was like a hospital run by the university kind of thing.
Okay.
At least, yeah. Anyway, he was arrested on February 25th, 2005, and soon confessed his crimes after being confronted with the DNA evidence. He was shocked and hurt that the police had lied to him with the floppy disk.
No. How dare you?
Literally. He then refers to the interrogation as a bonding session with the law enforcement agents, which I find very funny. The next day, his arrest was announced to the public at Wichita City Hall, and the crowd that was there actually like applauded for that.
I can't blame them.
Right? So after his arrest, they found stashes of writings, photos, artwork, and other items that he had kept from his crimes. They found female undergarments from his victims that he enjoyed wearing as well.
Classic.
What other serial killer did we cover recently that was also
Jared
that? Was it?
Burgos.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, the fetish.
Was he the Canadian? Was he like the sergeant?
No.
He was another one though.
Colonel, that's wearing... Russell Williams.
Mm-hmm.
He used to dress up. Yeah.
Yeah, he also liked wearing his victims' undies.
We've got a brunch spot in Burlington called Russell Williams. Oh. Best fucking brunch food you'll ever have.
Really unfortunate name.
Really unfortunate name. Yeah.
That is super unfortunate. Oh my gosh. So yeah, he, like many of the other people we've talked about, enjoyed wearing female undergarments. His obsession with bondage was seen clearly in his artwork, where he would trace a woman from like a magazine or a photograph or something, and then draw like ropes and other bindings to it. And he would tie himself up and would then photograph himself with a Polaroid camera somehow. He had like a little system rigged up.
Oh my god, I love that.
And so if you want photos of those, they are Murderpedia.
Yeah, I do.
I do.
Let me go.
I would actually really like you guys to look at those because they're so fucking disturbing.
Do you take Polaroid pictures of yourself in bondage?
Okay, well, how do you even bind yourself first? That's my question.
Yeah. He's like a Harry Houdini.
Yeah.
I don't know. And then he had
Do I want his bondage or his artwork photos?
You could look at both. The artwork does have like an image of him like tracing something and then drawing over it.
Oh, are those him?
The fear, the panic. Oh,
he has like a weird mask on.
You know, he's not a terrible artist. as
what?
terrible.
The tracing?
No, his drawings.
Artistically,
Okay,
1 second. I gotta be looking at these two.
They're horrific and brutal and disgusting. But they're. Oh my God! Wait, whoa, wait. Are these? These are his victims. These are photos, straight up photos of his.
No, I think those ones are all him. Like the pictures we're seeing people of, I think all of those might
all
be him.
Yeah, those are all him.
Hanging from the tree?
Yeah.
Wrapped in plastic on the ground? Those are him.
Yeah.
I did not expect to see.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some revealing ones in there.
Yeah. I didn't expect to see a tiny penis today, but here we are.
Sorry, trigger warning.
He buried himself in what?
How did he bury himself while bonded and he's wearing, like, taking Polaroids? Yeah, you're right. He has to have had someone else with him.
Someone has
right?
Oh,
there's no way. Drawings, Nicole, he just traced out of a magazine and then added the ropes and stuff.
Oh, I see. I was anticipating taking, like, a magazine image and then drawing on that image of the woman rather than transposing it onto is that the right transposing it onto
I think so.
A different piece of paper. That makes sense though. I'm following.
Yes. But yeah, so I really hate those photos.
Yeah.
They suck. Yeah.
Yeah. I like because when I first saw them, I thought like you guys that I was like, oh my God, these are his victims. Like I can't look at these. Like that's terrible. But it's just him and like the weird tape things he does on his mouth and making the mask. It just makes me so uncomfortable. I hate it.
There's one, not to laugh, but also because it's fucking hilarious. There's one in his artwork where he was like playing around with different variations of his BTK signature.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And one's just straight up a smiley face. Looks like a cool dude smiley face with his sunglasses.
It's also circled, which makes it even better.
Right? Yeah, so if you guys have, oh my gosh, there's like a list of things on that image. Oh my goodness.
A gag bag?
Something.
Okay.
Beware, for he will get your underwear.
Oh.
Yikes.
God.
Oh, what a weird dude. What a weird, horrible dude.
Yeah.
Definitely kink shaming.
See, that's what I mean. Like, I've seen the images. I'm casting judgment.
Like, fully okay.
Yeah. And then to make matters worse, he was doing this on Boy Scout trips.
Yeah.
So like, one time as a leader, he almost got caught because he couldn't escape his own bonds after tying himself inside a camper during a scout outing.
That's actually like scary because like what if like can you imagine his Boy Scouts walked in on that? Like I don't
How do you explain yourself? How do you
I don't think you do.
Because you're like alone.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Ish. Ugh, like I don't know. I was just I hate it. So go to Murderpedia, look at those.
1973 Dennis Rader. Fucking massive what do you call them?
Sideburns?
Sideburns. Yes.
Oh really?
If you go to Dennis Rader, Dennis Rader the photo 1 or something. Dennis Rader 1. Yeah. Massive sideburns.
Oh yeah, there he is. Yeah.
It's just so wild to see him because like he's not the BTK killer until later. Like he's not caught until 2005 and he starts killing in 1974.
That's insane.
That is insane. That is so, like terrifying.
Because he looks like a regular guy. Which is the scariest part because you're just like, oh, he's just the Boy Scout leader. Like no one would expect that he's tying himself up in bondage and killing people.
Yeah.
I
also didn't realize that 2005 was when he was caught. Like I very much felt like this was a 80s, 90s before we were even alive.
Me too.
Unfortunately, we were alive and quite young.
Wow.
But yeah. And so something kind of note was that they didn't really find any evidence from any other murder. Like, most of the evidence they found was able to be connected to the victims that they knew were his.
Mm.
And then in early May 2005, he pled not guilty. However, when his trial started in June, he pled guilty and then went into excruciating detail about how he would search for his victims, stalk them, kill them, like, just like word vomited to the court about what he did.
I
Yeah.
understand, like, I cannot begin to imagine, unless I experienced it, like, hearing your family member's killer saying those things in court.
Right.
But at the same time, like, I am so thankful that killers that actually do share why they did it are open about it, because it helps us learn so much about their brains.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
like
and I feel like, sorry, go
yeah.
ahead.
Sorry, I was just gonna say again, like, the poor victims' families, like, having to hear that, but at the same time, like, my scientific brain is so happy that they did say it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Um yeah, he like referred to his victims as projects.
Ew, gross.
And told the court that his sexual fantasies drove him to kill, as well as the other things. He was not accused of sexually assaulting his victims, but he did admit to masturbating over some of them. And then in July of 2005, a judge waived the usual 60-day waiting period and granted an immediate divorce for his wife.
Let's go.
Yeah. So Rader didn't contest that at all, and Paula said in her divorce petition that her mental and physical condition had been adversely affected by this marriage. Which, like, you just found out, like, your husband's a serial killer. I totally get wanting a divorce. I don't understand how your husband being a serial killer affects you physically.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's just her saying, like, this news has, like, traumatized her and caused her so much, like, grief and, like,
Yeah.
shame. She probably just feels, like, physically ill. That's my interpretation anyways.
Yeah. Okay.
I
That
did
kind of makes
actually
sense.
read, I don't remember the circumstances that led to this, but there was a point where I was in the waiting room at the hospital for something or another, and my mom went to get me a magazine to read while we were waiting. And in the magazine, there was actually an interview with the daughter of Dennis Rader, and it was an interview all about her saying how she genuinely did not have a single clue about it. And I feel like you're probably going to say something about that, but
Yeah.
yeah, okay, so I'll stop now. But
No,
still, like,
it's fine.
I do believe his wife in that, like, she
Mhm.
might actually genuinely have had no idea.
Yeah.
That's where
Yeah.
I'm
Well,
trying to get with that.
no, I get that. And I kind of feel like, I wonder if it was, I think it was John Wayne Gacy who had his wife, like, do house tours, like, semi-naked or in lingerie or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm wondering if he kind of did similar things with his wife to kind of appease it.
Yeah,
But it was
especially
just fun in the bedroom kind of stuff.
Yeah. But again, I don't know. Then on August 18th, 2005, he was sentenced to 10 consecutive life terms because Kansas didn't have the death penalty at the time he committed the murders. Which is interesting.
Yeah.
Because I thought it was at the time the trial was happening.
Yeah.
But apparently Kansas has like a special law where if you commit a crime while the death penalty was there, you can get it.
really, that's interesting.
And then the death penalty was reinstated in 1994, and I don't know when it was not, like, taken away. But yeah, so his sentencing hearing took 2 days and included an apology from him saying, quote, "I have a lot of remorse. I'm very sorry for them. It is something I wouldn't want to happen to my family," end quote. And he actually started just, like, crying when listening to victim impact statements, showed a ton of remorse, and was, like, visibly upset by the things they were saying.
Is he showing remorse for the victims, though, or is he just sad he got caught? You know?
Showing remorse for
I don't know.
himself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. He's very intriguing as a serial killer because of his, like, time periods and then the amount of remorse he shows at the trial. But then in 2019, he wrote a letter to Daily Mail where he claims that he was possessed by demons named Batter and Factor X when he was murdering people. He also said that he was planning on killing an 11th victim in October 2004. and he was actively stalking this intended victim, but I don't know why he didn't kill her because he wasn't arrested until like February of 2005. So I don't know why he didn't go through with it.
I'm glad he didn't, though. I
Me
cannot
too.
imagine. Like, I assume she never figured out, no one ever figured out they were the intended victim.
Yeah.
But I
kinda
cannot
hope so.
imagine the sheer amount of like fear and also like strangely survivor's guilt you might feel
Yeah.
from being the intended victim of a serial killer.
Right?
Mhm.
Yeah, very weird. And then the next point I have is the interview that his daughter gave to ABC News, where she said that she still writes to her father and has forgiven him, but still struggles to see him as the BTK killer. So I'm like, how can
Are
you
you
fully
forgiving him?
forgive someone even if you don't believe what they did?
Yeah.
Yeah, like
You're
because I
just
gotta be
ignoring the
honest, I
fact.
don't. Yeah, exactly. I think she's just in denial because I don't think you can truly offer acceptance if you're in denial.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, so I kind of have my own personal feelings about her, but again, I can't really pass judgment because my dad is not a serial killer to my knowledge. And I
So
can
fair.
I can
You're not.
imagine that would be quite traumatizing and like upsetting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there
Part
was
of what
like
I
a
read about her interview, sorry for
no,
interrupting.
go ahead.
Like I remember part of what she said is that he was a good dad.
Yeah.
He wasn't abusive, he wasn't like harsh, he was
Yeah.
apparently a good and loving and present father, which is what like pardon my language fucks me up most about it.
Mhm. Yeah, she like described it as like an all-American family or something.
Yeah.
And I'm just
Hmm.
like that's so to be a person who can flip from like murderer bondage guy to loving present father is just
The
wild.
dissociation and compartmentalization that needs to happen is
Yeah.
just next level at that point.
And then to not even have any like outbursts or anything for the 8 years and like your family is still like you're not abusive, you're a nice guy. So yeah, it's just very intriguing from a scientific perspective.
Yeah.
Um, but in August of 2023, he was in the news again as a prime suspect in an Oklahoma's teen's 1976 disappearance and a Missouri woman's 1990 killing. So in 1976, 16-year-old, I think that's supposed to be Cynthia, but if it's not, Cynthis Kinney was last seen at a laundromat in Pawhuska, Oklahoma. And at this time, Rader was working for ADT Security Systems, and the bank across the street was having a new security system installed. But law enforcement hasn't been able to identify or determine if Rader was the one who installed it.
Hmm.
And the police decided to investigate the potential link between Rader and Kinney's disappearance was because Rader had used the phrase bad laundry day in his writings. So they were kind of like, oh, this girl
Oh, with the
disappeared at a
laundromat.
laundromat. He talked about bad laundry days. Like,
It must
perhaps
be
he was
him.
there. Yeah. And then the investigation kind of spiraled out from there and now includes the death of 22-year-old Shauna Beth Garber, whose body was discovered in December 1990 in McDonald County, Missouri. And an autopsy revealed that she had been raped, strangled, and restrained with different bindings 2 months before her body was found. Um, but again, that kind of isn't his MO. Like, he doesn't sexually assault his victims. But again,
Yeah.
who's to say he didn't? In
Fair.
September 2023, authorities have potentially identified a girl who was in one of his color sketches that they've had since 2005. This woman was shown bound and gagged in a barn and is thought to have been from southeast Kansas and disappeared in 1991. They're performing follow-up interviews that could help connect him to these other crimes. I don't really know where we're at with that now.
Mm-hmm.
But right now he's just chilling in prison because he
Cool.
didn't get the death penalty.
He's almost.
So yeah,
Sorry.
he's almost 80. He's 79
He's
years old.
almost 80. God.
Yeah.
It's
It's just
pretty
yeah.
sorry, I was gonna say I appreciate that police are still working on his case, like potentially
Mhm.
connecting victims. But it's also just like crazy the fact that like he's still alive and hasn't that we know of killed in like over 2 decades and we're still finding more about him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. it's just, yeah, it's so crazy. Because not a lot of the serial killers that we talk about are still alive.
Yeah.
And he's just like hanging
He's
out.
there.
Yeah. Like, ugh, I hate it. But
interesting.
that is all I have for Dennis Rader, the BTK Killer.
The BTK Killer. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of that insightful information about this horrible man.
You're welcome.
It's honestly quite amusing just that he was his own downfall. Like, he just got cocky and was like, they won't know.
He just wanted too much attention. Like, he loved attention too much.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Well, we always appreciate you sharing all of your information journey, so thank you very much. Rebecca, do you have some fun little information to hopefully lighten up this episode? I can't remember if you said it was fun or if it was not fun.
Yeah, I do have some information to lighten it up a little. I kind of struggled to find anything forensic or crime related this week, and maybe it was because I was looking into Eileen Wuornos and I just needed like happy brain mode.
Yeah.
But I found happy brain mode, so I'm so excited to share. So in 2014, there were 2 Dutch scientists. I apologize if I say the names wrong, because they're Dutch, but they're Johanna Major and Yuri Robbers. And they decided to conduct an experiment after kind of they were looking at their lab mice because they're scientists, and they were watching their lab mice crawling around and like running on their wheels. And they were wondering, like, I know that mice in captivity run on wheels because they need exercise, but what would happen if we left a wheel in nature?
Ooh, okay.
So they did exactly this. They left a little wheel designed for like mice and rats for running, just in like a little public park. And they also put some pet food on it or by it just to kind of coax them. And they found in the next couple months that there were not only wild mice using it, but there were shrews using it. There were rats using it. There were frogs hopping on it.
No way.
Gosh. Yeah, they said the frogs weren't running, but they were hopping, which still triggered their like counter of animals.
Oh my gosh.
And they also, mind you, this one they said they think they were just interested in the fact that there was something new on the ground, but they even saw slugs on their wheel.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I fucking love that.
I know. And so they were really interested by their first results because it was in a public park. So like people could go and see them. Like they didn't know if that was impacting anything, and there was food nearby. So they set up another one in like somewhere that wasn't accessible by humans, like it was a private lot. And over a 1.5 year period, actually, sorry, that's a lie. In a 3-year period, using 2 wheels, they recorded over 200,000 animal uses of it.
Oh my gosh.
They did say that they removed the food to see how much of an impact it had. And while removing the food did end up impacting like how many animals came, it decreased the number. There was still like a significant enough amount to determine that the animals had some other form of intrinsic like need or want to be running on this that wasn't food motivated.
Interesting.
No, yeah, so they're so mice aren't just running on those for more exercise in a little box. Like for some reason,
they yearn for the wheel.
That's so cool.
Oh my gosh.
I just thought that was so cute. Like I just love to picture like a little
wheel in a little yard.
Yeah. Like I'm thinking maybe I'll put one in my backyard and see what I can capture.
See if the chipmunks come. See if oh my god,
that'd be so nice.
See what Nova Scotia wildlife yearns for the wheel.
Yeah, but one other small fact I had about it, because like they only really did this because they were curious. Yeah. The only implication they really took from the study was that like it might have implications in like how researchers help lab mice like exercise or stuff like that, or like rehabilitating like wild mice. But they said that like of the 200,000 separate instances of animals using the wheel, one mouse ran on it like for a consecutive 18 minutes straight.
Wow.
He was having a good run.
That's hours in their timeline. Wow.
Literally.
Good for them.
I love that they're just like, they see a wheel in nature and they're like, what is this? We must discover.
I know. And then they go and step and they're like, oh, it moves.
Yeah. Perfect.
Like,
just what I need.
Do I run on this? It's just so cool.
Oh, I love it so much. But yeah, that is like my entire forensic corner. It is not forensic. It's just wholesome wild animals enjoying toys. That's it. It makes me so happy.
We need that sometimes.
Especially after this one.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is so fair.
It's kind of cool too to see how like even throughout human history and innovation and stuff like that, the wheel has always been there. Like the wheel has been there in like medieval times. People are in wheels to lift and lower things. Animals like cats, they have their little exercise wheels. There's just always something to walk on. Like, I don't know, walking in a wheel
really is a magnificent invention.
It really is. It really is. It just draws you in.
That's so cool.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that little tidbit, Rebecca.
Oh, I'm so happy to.
Our next episode, we will be talking about the KKK. So a lot of discussion there. We're going to talk about why they aren't considered a terrorist group. I think that's going to be a big part of it, and you know, just history and how awful they are, and all that amazing. Wonderful
and
things.
We'll be in person for that one.
Oh my gosh, yeah, we actually will.
That's so
We're
exciting.
going to be in Nova Scotia all together.
Yay.
Our second episode in all 4 years. All in person.
That's crazy.
Wow. Look at that.
So exciting.
So exciting.
Who would have thought?
Who would have thought? Not me. Not me.
So nice.
But if you want even more of us and want to find more about what we do and all of the things that we share, you can find us on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook at What the Forensics. Our TikTok is What the Forensics as well. Our X/Twitter is WT Forensics PC. I think Jern's taken the initiative of trying to post more. We never post. So if you see a post, it's a miraculous day. It doesn't happen often. And then our website is kind of our one-stop shop for everything. It's whattheforensics.ca. I did have a coworker, actually, fun fact, today. I was telling her about the podcast, and so she Googled it, and our website popped up, and she was like, oh my gosh, like, I actually love how much you put into it. And I was like, nice. Thanks.
That feels good to hear.
It does.
Love that
it does
so
feel
much.
good to hear.
Yeah.
So if you guys have wonderful things that you want to tell us and maybe butter us up a little bit, leave us a review. We love to hear what you have to say. You can email us at whattheforensics@gmail.com. We will take all comments, considerations, suggestions, you name it. We just want to stay relevant to what you guys want to hear. So give us those suggestions, you know? That being said, this has been another episode of What the Forensics. It's always a pleasure, always a joy to chat with you, and we hope you enjoyed it as I have, and we will see you next time. Bye!
Just a reminder to everyone that we are not professionals in the forensic science field. We are just interested in forensics and want to share what we are learning with our listeners. We're trying to give you the most accurate information, but we are human and can make mistakes. Thank you so much for listening, and we hope to see you next week.